All right, all right, all right. Greetings, everyone. We're going live. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. First, as usual, before I get started, I'd like to give a disclaimer. This video is for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her homework and research regarding the information being discussed. This information is not to be construed as legal advice. Any event you feel you need to seek a competent professional, it is encouraged that you do so at one's own leisure. Everyone is responsible for their own actions. Dorsey's Resource is not liable or responsible for any misuse of this information. These are simply my opinions. With that being said, all rights are reserved. Now, to get into the topic of this video, is going to be corrupt, centralized banking system, and this is also going to be Q&A. I'm going to go over some things. I took some notes with me. I plan to not be before you all that long, hopefully. So this is Q&A, so for the few, you're welcome to join in. Thank you for watching. Now, first, I wanted to mention there's a particular bank named JP Morgan, and I mentioned in a previous video a while ago I've done about buying silver and cryptocurrencies. I haven't really touched on cryptocurrencies that much, but however, behind the scenes, I forgot to mention to you guys, I was told by someone that I know who has really good credible information that's helped share information with me, past information down, because I have people that I know privately who study like stocks and things that deal pertaining to banking, and this was shared with me. And also this private event that I attended some years ago, I heard them mention this on a particular conference call some months back before they compartmentalized things and made things more private. But I was told that JP Morgan Chase had been buying silver and cryptocurrency behind the scenes, and I heard they've been massively buying silver. And a while ago, the CEO, Jamie Dimon, tried to downplay it. By the way, Alan Michael says, go Dorsey. Thank you. Greetings to you, Alan. Appreciate you joining. Appreciate the work that you do, by the way. But I was told that JP Morgan had been buying silver and crypto, actually cryptocurrency as well. But it was reported on, I follow another YouTube channel, a guy down in the Florida area, JSnip4. If you get a chance, subscribe to him. He puts out real good, accurate information, because there's people that will try to downplay this information. And in this video, the notes that I do have, I intend to dispel some of the myths, some of the rumors being put out there by certain key individuals who've been in the movement for a while, or information that's related to resources for you all to research. Lady T says, much appreciated info. I recently just found a silver certificate, not too sure what to do with it. Okay, excellent. You know, you can use it, Lady T, to, for example, like years ago, they no longer utilize the silver certificates, is where the Federal Reserve notes like we carry in our pocket used to be able to take that to a bank and redeem them for actual precious metal. But they took us off that standard years ago, like when they took us off the gold standard. And as years progressed, things changed. In particular, I don't have all my notes with me, but you can look up information on there about that. But a lot of coin shops, certain dealers that deal with memorabilia, even coin shows I've attended, it may cost a little bit more, but for memorabilia record purposes, I actually had one of those notes myself. I might still actually have it somewhere I forgot about, by the way. And you also had gold certificates, and it showed evidence how years ago our banking system was slightly different than the way that it's being utilized today in our modern day and age. This kind of gets in depth, by the way. But to get back on track, this corrupt, centralized banking system has been behind, in my opinion, is behind why the GCR, known as the global currency reset, keeps getting stalled. Why do they keep stalling this? And I had did a video a while ago, a couple of videos or several, where I asked you guys if you had some input. Who do you think is stalling the reset? You know, but with things keep tying back into, I heard from one of my sources mention there was a particular conference call that he listened to that deals with trust, where they focus on like the trust stuff, because a lot of people that were into like the the reset stuff with those currencies or whatever, there's information that's important in terms of having a trust set up, having your structure properly set up. So once your funding does come through, you're properly established. I won't go into all that, but just to keep things basic, he was sharing with me that one of the particular conference calls, the gentleman on there had stated that he had gotten word that the NSA, some stay behind networks or some corrupt people within the NSA were behind and stopped the reset from happening when the dinar was supposed to revalue. But in my opinion, I've given my opinion on this already. I don't really do videos focusing too much on that because it's become quite obvious now that the cabal, the evil criminal cabal, which is a global syndicate that's heavily connected to the banking system, is behind this, by the way. And that's why I'm doing this video. I'm going to go over some documentaries, a few documentaries, some other information. Hopefully I have enough time. I just remember the documentaries. The reason I always mention these documentaries, please check out Money Masters. You can watch it free on YouTube if you haven't watched it. I know it's very long, but it's highly educational. Monopoly Man, it's another excellent documentary. Please check these out. Very important. There's another documentary called something like The Secret to Oz or whatever, by a guy. He is like the producer named Bill Steele, or he had a lot to do even with Money Masters. He helped produce that documentary. Please check out The Secret of Oz with Bill Steele, and you can type in his name, Bill, spelled B-I-L-L, then Steele, S as in Sam, T as in Tina, I as in Icarus, L as in Larry, L as in Larry, Bill Steele. Check out Bill Steele. Just type that in on a search engine on YouTube. You can pull it up. I highly recommend get an app to download, archive it so you can share it. You have proof before these gatekeepers try to shut this down, because what is going on with this censorship and stuff too, they also are trying to not only purposely get false, misleading information with using minions and gatekeepers out here, trolls some of you are already familiar with, without saying any names, to once they get rid, have the ability to brainwash people, then they want to completely start removing evidence. And I'm going over actual evidence. So if you question the authenticity, the accuracy of this information, that's why I did a video previously to discuss the authenticity and the accuracy of the information that I go over is highly credible, by the way, contrary to popular belief. With this particular gatekeeper out there says this minion, shield, agent, troll. Sometimes people don't necessarily have to work for the FBI. They can be agents of disinformation or misinfo, agents of hatred, that mean-spirited people that just don't want to see people prosper. They, for various other reasons. And they could also work for people in disruption too. They also refer to them. There's another term they use with different groups similar to anarchists that cause disruption and confusion. Provocateurs, by the way, that's another term they use. They're provocateurs, minions, and some of the lower level people that report high up, they're underlings. There's a structure to this. And I said, please check out these documentaries. Will help connect the pieces. So I went over Money Masters, Monopoly Men, the Secret of Oz by Bill Steele. Don't quote me if that's the name, but something like that. It'll pull it up correctly if you put it in the search engine. The Secret of Oz by Bill Steele, because they codified this information, was coded in the movie The Wizard of Oz. Before they came out with the movie, by the way, there was a book. There was a series similar to the Hunger Games. Remember the Hunger Games movie had a book, had a series? Well, Wizard of Oz had actually a series of books. If you remember the old show Little House on the Prairie, they actually had books. I used to have them many years ago. By the way, they had books on the story, and some of the schools would actually, teachers and stuff would actually have tests in your literature or your English class. The teacher would give tests on some of these books, to help your cognitive abilities and stuff like that, dealing with the curriculum at some of the schools. Nowadays they've changed curriculums. That's a whole nother topic, where they're pushing Common Core and stuff of that nature, because they want to dumb down the population. They don't want you to be as versatile, as smart. And that's why I highly recommend to go over this information, because it will cut to the truth. And it will reveal to you the solid truth, the evidence, like what I'm going over. So I went over JP Morgan is buying silver, cryptocurrencies behind the scenes. They also were caught recently, by the way, and this is just many of these banks like JP Morgan, Bank of America. The reason I'm mentioning them, Wells Fargo, Huntington, even your credit unions like Michigan First, etc. If you see FDIC, insured, whatever, that's a connection. They're all up under the Federal Reserve. Like I'm in Michigan, for example. I called a credit union I used to bank with many years ago. I no longer bank with them anymore. They were called Michigan First. And I called them up on the phone. I gave them a call and I asked the lady when I was learning this information many years ago. I don't have the call recorded, but you guys take my word for it. You can look it up. She admitted to me, she said, yes, we are a member of the Federal Reserve banking system. We are up under. So the credit unions, they play this game where people like to go back and forth whether which one is better. They have a different way or different style of doing things. Like many people in the general public are unaware of interest-bearing checking accounts versus non-interest-bearing checking accounts, which they're pushing those to a lot of college students. That's what a lot of the banks are doing now to steer the general public away from non-interest checking versus interest bearing. And then savings accounts, remember, those are interest checking, because if you accrue a certain amount of interest, like years ago, I had an interest checking account with Bank of America. When I attended that event some years ago, we were required to set up or get interest bearing accounts so they could pull the bond to pay for our membership with the DTC. By the way, they're doing things differently now, by the way, but that was one of the reasons, just to give you guys a short background for those that question the authenticity, the accuracy of the information. I want to let you guys know I'm very well studied. I've experienced some of what I'm sharing with you myself, but Bank of America sent me a 1099, even though I didn't accrue interest of at least $10 by the time I was required by this elite group of people to shut the account down. But the whole seminar, things went into disarray, turmoil, or whatnot during that particular time period. And they still are holding particular documents. And that's the event. I'm not going to say the name. I was contemplating whether or not I was going to come back, but I hear they've changed, revamped the whole system around that's pertaining to that. That's a whole nother topic discussion within itself. But I just wanted to show you guys the accuracy. When I go over this information with you guys, some of this stuff I've actually experienced and witnessed myself, by the way. So getting back to JP Morgan Chase, a cargo ship JP Morgan Chase owned by a hedge fund was recently caught. Some of you all may be aware, with tons of drugs on board. I think it was cocaine. The article was reported on, I discovered, by some mainstream outlets as well as independent media outlets. I first heard about it on the independent media, which the mainstream media tries to label as fake news. They try to go back and forth, but no, you want to follow independent journalists, by the way. Hold on, I'll be back, guys. Okay, thank you guys for holding. You know, I'm at the, I call it the slave plantation. Looks like somebody might have joined in the chat, or I might see a message in there. Mary Saunders says, good morning, sir. Greetings to you, Mary. Thank you for joining. Lady T says, who should we bank with? And we should also sign the back of our checks, UCC 308. I think, okay, that's a real good question. Now there's some things, I'll try to do my level best to answer this question. There's some things I can't really go over in terms of who to bank with. You do have private banks out here. What that gets into, there's a whole nother level to give you guys an idea. I've discussed some of this vaguely in the previous videos when I talked about the dinar. Like, you have different levels to banks. Like, you have different departments like asset management, those that handle like private banking, wealth management, and things of that sort. If I was contemplating on starting a Patreon account where I can go more in depth, and this will also help keep down on the trolls, because a lot of people who have malicious intent or trolls are not willing to pay to learn the true information or accurate information. By the way, that's why it's not that I'm ignoring my subscribers when I receive the messages and stuff from you guys. I have to do things for security purposes, by the way, when I get emails and stuff, because it takes me time to answer these questions as well. And keep in mind, you have people that don't have good intentions, or possibly not saying this is the case, because I don't have a way to truly vet people out. That's why I already have a small immediate circle that's already established locally where I'm at, and I recommend wherever you guys are located at to network with the people in your home states as well, by the way, so you can have a group that you're familiar with to go over this information, because it's very important to brainstorm with one another, and to continue to research, and also purchase new material. Like, I'm still studying like webinars and stuff like that, but not to get too far off track, Lady T. So she says, so who should you bank with? Like I said, to reiterate once again, it's in terms of banking, look into private banking, look into wealth management, just basics information pertaining to the private sector, learning the difference between not commingling your assets and funds as well. And when you say, should you sign the back of the check, keep in mind some institutions nowadays, because they're trying to say, use that word, label people as sovereign citizens or SC terms, because it was someone I was studying under where they were mentioned put redeem in lawful money. And what that actually is, some bankers are not aware, because many of these institutions high up are not properly training their employees. So they're not aware. They think that you're doing something that you're not supposed to. In actuality, it's a form of a restrictive endorsement. You want to look up the terms, restrictive endorsement, blank endorsements as well. Like, you have apartment complexes, when they would take checks and money orders, for example, they would stamp for deposit only. That's a form of a restrictive endorsement. It's restrictive endorsement specifically saying, hey, this instrument is for deposit only. But when you put that, all rights reserved, the UCC dash 308 and Michigan's law, that's codified in MCL, which is Michigan Compiled Law 440.1308, which a lot of people don't know. Police officers and the court judicial system is required to go by the Michigan court rules and the MCLs, the Michigan Compiled Laws. So, for example, this is so serious. I was sharing with a friend of mine that I was in Costco with them, and we saw a sign where they had an MCL. It was a Michigan Compiled Law, no lie, and it had right above where they had the alcohol at, it said, do not sell this alcohol, specific alcohol, to minors or whatnot, because pursuant to this particular law, meaning that law, you're supposed to follow that. It was a Michigan Compiled Law. That's how serious the laws are. So when bankers or people question you, and they would say, for example, if you have an instrument and they would say, what is this right here? You ask them, is there a law that states that I cannot sign my name this way, or says that I can't? So you put the onus on them. You're asking them the question, because they don't have delegation of authority to make a legal determination of your affair. Let me say that again. That's a form of lawyering. And I know some people, I've heard stories, some people who are actually lawyers, that by no means, I did give a disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer. But however, I've heard of lawyers, attorneys, people that are very advanced with their verbal skills, even judges, because they go to school for this, where they've even questioned police officers and security guards, which certain states where, you know how security guards work at a store, or armed security, and they ask you for your receipt. But in this state that I'm in, a customer can actually refuse it. Years ago, the reason I know this, I used to work as one at a particular store years ago, and customers used to say, you know that it's my right to refuse to show you. But most people do it voluntarily as a form of courtesy. But in the state Michigan, the consumer can actually refuse. This is a true story. I'm not making this up. Can refuse to show their receipt. Now, I will say, for the record, I'm not sure if it's still like that, if they've amended anything. But the particular store I used to work at was Home Depot, by the way. They hired security because they wanted to help keep down on the theft and things. So they would ask the guards there, when people would, after they make a purchase, you'd be right at the door, and they would come out from the cash register, and I would have customers, and I didn't know anything about this information back then. To show you guys, I didn't come out my mother's womb knowing this stuff. When I heard years ago about sovereign citizens and this stuff, I used to work as a security guard for a company that changed the name. They used to be called Whack and Hut, and they're now G4S Security or whatever. And I didn't know at the time, it scared me. I had a customer, she was a lady and she had taken a legal class, and she said, "What is your bond number?" She was looking at my registration. I was just politely asking for our receipt, her receipt. But our supervisor, by the way, had trained us that if a customer refuses, that is their right to refuse to show you their receipt according to the law. My supervisor at the time, his name was Lieutenant Nicholas. By the way, was awesome, great supervisor I had. By the way, had nothing bad to say about them and Lieutenant during that time period. I don't no longer work for that particular company anymore, but this is a true story to show you guys credible information. I'm not making up, to give you guys an idea, and you know, further answering Lady T's question. Lady T says in the chat, yes, Patreon, I'll support you. Appreciate it, Lady T. So hopefully I've answered your question. Some things, like I said, if I am able to start the Patreon account soon, then I can go more in depth, and with other things as well, a lot more in depth. I can break things down a lot greater into the purest form. That's why I gave that example for you guys, to show you how the law works. And even when you're in a bank, sometimes there's another way to sign your name without putting all rights reserved. So sometimes it doesn't put up a red flag. But I want to let you guys know, when people sign that way, in case you are a banker, you work at a bank, that is not nothing illegal. That is your right to do that. But that teller, when they're telling you or trying to intimidate you, they don't have a license to practice the law, especially if they're not a lawyer and you haven't hired them. They're actually practicing the law without a license, because now they are a public servant. They're acting in the public for that particular institution, whether it's Huntington Bank, Chase Bank, Bank of America, Fifth Third, Wells Fargo, SunTrust Bank, whatever, credit union, whatever. They're acting as a third party, and they don't have delegation of authority under the Constitution to make a legal determination of your affairs. So reason I told the story years ago about people who are lawyers or attorneys and judges even, that are trained to go over legalese. That's why their grammatical skills are very advanced. They've even corrected me because of the capacity, the field that I work in, at times where I've been questioned and asked, because it's a certain way, you know, obviously they use the way we use the English language in these words, and they're highly skilled. But I was told stories where they've even questioned police officers, said you're lawyering, if they didn't have probable cause when they would ask a question why they were pulled over, or in terms of not consenting. Now, I'm not giving legal advice. I'm just giving you guys an idea. But you have to be trained in knowing this, because these gatekeepers and some of these people are trained as well. Like when a police officer, for example, which they're a public officer, when you hear officer, what office do they work for? When you break the etymology of these words down, look up etymology as well. Like I went over Black's Law Dictionary, and I was going to go over David Windmiller. His research on quantum language, syntax, grammar is accurate. Contrary to popular belief, there's a gatekeeper out there who was trying to say that Judge Dale and Anna Von Ritt's information is not accurate. No, that is not true. Anna Von Ritt's out of Alaska, common law judge. Commend Anna Von Ritt. Her information is highly accurate. Judge Dale, his work about the straw man, which is in the legal term, is called the in lingus. Look up the in lingus. You can look it up on online encyclopedias if you have a Black's Law legal dictionary. Also, it's codified look up the term res, R-E-S. Roberto as R, E as in Edward, S as in Sally, res. That's codified in Title 9 of the United States Codes, where they consider you a vessel of the United States. Because under the court system, they're operating under admiralty. Admiralty is military. A maritime is law of the seas. They're operating under admiralty, a maritime. Admiralty is military. A maritime is law of the seas. You see, so you have to understand the difference also between statutory and non-statutory. Statutory means under the statutes. You see, when I break it down and I go slow, statutory, under the statutes. It's a key. Those are the codes. Those terms are codified, by the way. So this is why David Windmiller's research on quantum language and syntax grammar is accurate. Because, for example, when I went over the officer and people question them, for example, or gatekeepers, people who work in the public, by the way, especially bankers, people that work in institutions, and if they're questioning you about how you sign your name, if you're putting all rights reserved, which simply means in connection with my signature. I have reserved my common law right not to be compelled to perform under any unrevealed contract or commercial agreement that I did not enter into knowingly, voluntarily, or intentionally. And furthermore, I do not accept the compelled benefit of any unrevealed contract or commercial agreement. That is codified. That is UCC 1-308, which was changed previously from 1-207 many years ago. It was updated to 1-308, which is codified in Michigan Compiled Law MCL 440.1308. That's where the Michigan MCLs for the UCC statutes are codified at. And the court system and police officers and judges, they are supposed to go by the MCLs and MCRs. MCRs are Michigan court rules. See, they're supposed to follow. That's part of following civil procedure. But there's another aspect to this as well that deals with the private sector and understanding the difference between statutory and non-statutory and how certain jurisdictions supersede one another. You have status. That's a whole nother topic I'm not going to go as in depth with. Jurisdiction, then adjudication. You know, do they have the proper jurisdiction? Do they have delegation of authority? That court is at the proper venue. Sometimes these courts, they're operating out of the wrong venue, but they're getting your acquiescence when you're contracting with them and you're not understanding. See, a lot of things that we do out here is based in commerce, it's contracts. You see, you guys got me flowing. I didn't mean to go this far off the topic, but I want to give you guys a thorough understanding. You see, if I do a Patreon account, this is the type of in-depth research that I can do and break things down in the purest form. So hopefully, Lady T, if you're still watching, let me know if I answered your question as best as I could. By the way, I try to be thorough as possible. Do appreciate you all, the few that are watching that have joined me thus far. And thank you for the thumbs up out there as well. So to go back over, this topic of this video was based on corrupt centralized banking system. By the way, I was checking the time, see how much time we have. Okay, got a little bit more time before I'm going to shut things down, because I am at what I call the slavery plantation, speaking as a figure of speech. I shouldn't be working this job, which stands for just over broke, anymore. But there's a reason these corrupt bankers, they're using the monetary financial system as a weapon against us as well. And this is tied in with this censorship stuff too, by the way. This is a form of financial terrorism, also economic terrorism. This is forced financial oppression. This is why, in my opinion, I believe the cabal, the evil cabal, keeps stalling this global currency reset. And I think it would be in the best choice of the good elites, or some people call the good cabal, to allow those who pay for these seminars already to access their accounts, because they know how to access it without it reversing. By the way, speaking in code in a way, they know how, because I have the evidence, I have paperwork and stuff too, by the way. So I think it would be in their best interest, those people who pay money for these events and stuff that have been very patient, beyond patient, should be and should have already been able to access these accounts with no reversals at all. And I do hear down the road, once the reset happens, that that's supposed to end, that they're going to allow the accounts to go through, as Heather Tucci used to say, as a figure of speech, unfettered access. But that remains to be seen. We won't know, because there's a fight with the cabal. I even hear that the Federal Reserve has actually got some type of court case going on with the government. I have to find out more about that, about this new ledger system that they want to still be able to charge people interest through their fractional reserve banking. By the way, that's in Modern Money Mechanics, goes over. You can look up the book, what fractional reserve banking is. That's where they can loan up to 10 times whatever your deposit is. So say if you have $10,000 on deposit, they can loan up to 100,000. Some say 90% of that, whatever your initial deposit is. That's what fractional reserve banking is. They monetize, also securitize that amount. If it's $1,000. That's why certain institutions or places will say or tell you, when it comes to funding, when you apply for a loan, and even like stores will say, we'll have to see if we have enough cash or assets on hand to support that, based on how large that institution is or how large that store is as well, to kind of give you an idea. RC says that's where the blockchain ledger system will come into play. Yes, I hear. Now, one thing about the cryptocurrencies, now, I will say, because I felt a certain type of way about them, because there's a lot of people say, because the title of this video is Corrupt Centralized Banking System, and a lot of people say the cryptocurrencies are decentralized, which in a sense it was created to basically, because the Federal Reserve was so bad, so they had to do something. But however, the cryptocurrencies is not the perfect answer, because there's something going to happen down the road. Where I did a previous video, some of you guys even told me in the chat, which I appreciate, about the Bitcoin time traveler. I did look up the story about that, by the way. It says not the cryptocurrency, but the ledger aspect of it. Okay, thank you, RC. I see the difference. Now I have to, I kind of get what you're saying, the ledger system, because yeah, there's some things that are going on behind the scenes, and I'm getting ready to shut things down, so I can't really go as in depth and give my opinion about it. But I do appreciate the input that you share, RC. Thank you for that. And I heard about Ripple is supposed to be or help based off that new ledger system, or XRP, or and also Stellar Lumens is one of the other cryptocurrencies is related to fast type of transactions, X speed rapid. By the way, just a little bit. I have to brush up on this stuff some more, because by no means am I expert. Some of you guys that are more advanced than I am when it comes to cryptocurrency, I am aware you guys have a background in trading, a lot of you guys, and there was a lot of corruption and fraud with that. So what I do like about the cryptocurrencies, in a way, it's like a form of the underground stock market, by the way, where it's decentralized. You have more control, where it's there's still manipulation, where I found out they came in, an elder told me, and it's connected to the futures market somehow. I did hear about that. I don't understand all of the specifics, but I have an idea how the future market operates and how they manipulate the commodities market, the precious metals, by the way. So I went over JP Morgan Chase has been buying silver and cryptocurrency behind the scenes. They are up under the Federal Reserve banking system, centralized banking system. They had a cargo ship recently owned by a hedge fund was caught with tons of drugs on board. This article was reported on by some mainstream outlets as well as independent media outlets. I heard it on the independent media first, but I'm glad to see some mainstream outlets reported on it. Also want to make a note before I shut this video down. Years ago, JP Morgan purchased a patent for an anonymous currency, by the way. Just something to think about. I was doing research where a sister told me actually last year, a sister that I was working with, by the way, and she was part of the TDA movement. Big shout out to her, by the way. Extra Light shared this with me. She told me to look up the inventor who invented Bitcoin, by the way. I said, okay, I never really thought about it. Just like the movie documentary Money Masters, for example, goes into the history of how the Federal Reserve banking system was started. Like G. Edward Griffin's book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, I want to say is also accurate, just like I went over Wizard of Oz with the Federal Reserve banking system. And despite what you might see on Wikipedia about these people, that's misleading information. These people are not conspiracy theorists. These people are researchers, historians. Some people have risked their lives to share this information. So I want to tell you, G. Edward Griffin is highly accurate. Judge Anna Von Ritz, Judge Dale, and David Windmiller's research. Kudos to these people. Mad kudos. Appreciate you all of these people that's contributed down the road. There's many, a list of others. But his book, Creature from Jekyll Island, is accurate. Goes into the history about the creation of the Federal Reserve banking system. So this backs up the documentaries that I gave you. So you guys don't take my word for what I'm saying. You'll see how accurate and credible the information I'm going over is, the accuracy, the authenticity of this information, contrary to what other minions out there and gatekeepers that are running off at the mouth just making stuff up are lying about, telling you. When you research and look up the evidence that I've presented, it'll be obvious, clear as day. I'll keep it that simple. Now, did I go over... okay, I went over that about JP Morgan, about they purchased a patent years ago for an anonymous currency. Just something to think about. An anonymous currency, by the way. Who wants to have an anonymous currency? But if you listened to me earlier, who's also buying silver and cryptocurrency behind the scenes? And their CEO, Jamie Dimon, tried to downplay it at first. Remember, it was an article that came out. His daughter had bought some cryptocurrencies and he downplayed it. And then it later came out that he purchased some himself. But wait a minute. He's the CEO of Chase. Isn't that sort of maybe a conflict of interest? I'm just saying, nothing over here, nothing over there. It's just something to think about. But that was reported on by Jay Snip 4. I follow his channel. Kudos to him, his work down in Florida that he does. So hopefully I've gone over everything is thus far from my notes, by the way. And just to finish up, David Windmiller's research on quantum language, syntax, grammar is accurate. You can look up his information. The legal terms are very important. And the court system, also known as the legal judicial system, they use legalese. Legalese is a special language of the legal profession to replace plain talk, like plain grammar. Like, how we have the regular English Webster's dictionary, but you have a Black's Law dictionary that's for people who are studying to become attorneys, to pass the bar association, which they get their license through the county to practice. And that is also like a form of having dual citizenship. By the way, secretly, they're issued a P number. The P number through the bar, under British accredited regency, they're knights for the Queen of England. That's Esquire. Look up the history on Esquire. It's tied in with the corporations, the charters. By the way, like the knights protect the queen on the chessboard. They can, some of the most powerful pieces if you know how to use them correctly. It's not a coincidence, with the judicial system, the way the lawyers, big corporations have big lawyers that, I want some other stuff I wanted to say. But to give you guys an idea, there's a difference between legalese, which they speak in the legal profession. It's a specific type of specialized language. You look up the definition of this. So I also want to reiterate what's being said about some of these people I went over online is somewhat misleading. They're not conspiracy theorists. Their research is credible. And this information that I went over is credible. Now, to shut things down, I want to thank you guys who did take the time to watch this video. Join me, who thumbs up. Don't forget to like, subscribe to my channel at Dorsey's Resource. If you haven't, you can also follow me on Facebook at Dorsey's Resource. I'm on Twitter, obviously, of course, on YouTube. I'm also on minds.com as well. You want to get on other social media sites as well, so YouTube doesn't maintain a monopoly. Chris Smith says, wish I got here earlier. Thank you for joining, Chris Smith. You can always go back and watch once the video uploads. But once again, I'm your host, John Dorsey at Dorsey's Resource. Thank you all for joining me. Until next time, take care.